Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you? Fine. I'm fine too. Yeah, cultures don't fall from the sky. Future is the domain of the unknown. And we love it and we hate it. I mean, it's very excited. We can get very excited if we don't know, and it scares us to death as well. And together we can shape futures and cultures we want. And it's up to us how we do that. We shape the futures through every daily action we take, and the dreams we chase, and the stories we tell. And I think it's up to leaders, to you, to ground and to direct that future-shaping process, and that's what I want to talk about. How can we create future-proof tribes, cultures, in which everyone can thrive? I'm an anthropologist, and I travel the world to understand how people shape those cultures. And when I say the word anthropology, many times people feel that it's the quickest route to unemployment. Yeah, and you're all wrong. Because the academic field of anthropology holds vital information for leaders to shape corporations, organizations, cultures, society, etc. You could say that nothing has meaning of itself. We have to create the meaning together. Culture is a sense-giving system. And since nothing has meaning of itself, and we create it together, the question is, who can define the norm? Who can say what is normal, what's not? Who can join in and who cannot? Cultures are not about feelings. They are, but it's more than that. It's about how we shape the world, how we build our cities. Who has power and who has not? You could say that cultures are unique answers to universal questions. It's like every time a group of people gets together, doesn't matter where, a group of people, Homo sapiens get together, and they have the similar questions to answer. Like, what is good leadership? How we do with respect? What do we do with the differences between men and women? What do we do with the time going by? And those answers we find, we call them culture. And every group finds unique answers to universal questions. I'd like to share a couple of the essential anthropological insights with you to help you create future-proof cultures and corporations. The first insight is that it has everything to do with interaction and decision-making. So let's look at the concept that people shape cultures and cultures shape people. Cultures don't fall from the sky, as I said. Nothing has meaning of itself. We have to create the meaning together. So let's say a group gets together, and you have to decide, okay, what do we feel is valuable and what not? Once we got those values, the things we feel are really important, we need to act on it. We need to define our behaviors. Because if we don't act on what we think is valuable, the corporate values are just on your website. So we get the behaviors. And then from there, we make sure that everyone applies those behaviors. So some of the behaviors, they get into the code of law. There's the norms, very, very clear. If you don't apply them, you go to jail or you can leave the company. And some, they don't get into the code of law, but it's been made very clear that if you don't apply those behaviors, you're out. It's called group pressure. So we have the values, we have the norms, and then we start to build, a world, our physical world. We start build the buildings and the procedures and the structures and the financial streams. It's like there where what we think is valuable solidifies itself in the world around us, and then it becomes really true. But nothing has meaning of itself. We can create a meaning together. And the same counts for office spaces. What is good leadership? I don't know. If we value directive leadership, then the ones who are very good in the behavior which comes with directive leadership, they become the leaders. Go that way. Those are the leaders. And then we build the office space and we get them their own space, big windows, big table, own elevator so they don't have to go through the crowd all the time. It's culture. Another group can value something else. It needs to be more facilitative leadership, then different behavior, etc. People shape cultures, cultures shape people, they shape us. Because nothing has meaning of itself, but if everyone around you says that this is the way to go, that becomes the truth. And if this is normal, then the group who's doing something else must be not normal. If this is good, that must be bad. If this is beautiful, this must be ugly. And we fight that. And that's called culture clash. People shape cultures, cultures shape people, and we need that. We need a storyline. If we don't have the storyline, we go mad. The narrative, the things we believe in, how should I act? You know, it's a good thing you all got here dressed. I mean, I didn't say, P.S., make sure you get your clothes on. That's culture. You knew that was expected. And I like that. And you have those moments in your management meetings where you get people together and you get all the noses in the right direction, that you align everything, right? But you know, the thing is, there's always someone who. I called this little bird Harry. But you can call it Harriet, if you like, or Juho, or Helmi. It's all good. What do we say to Harry? What's her first reflex? Usually it's something like, oh, get with the program. Act normal. Do as the others. And I think that's the mistake of us human beings, that somehow we find it very difficult to deal with differences. The reflex should be, wow, what do you see? And then we integrate it to what we do. But if that is challenging our status quo, we might need to change what we think is valuable, and then we need to change behaviors, and then, etc. We need to redesign the world. It's very complicated. So hush up. But the thing is, if you have a different view from your colleagues, and I know you will, because diversity and different views are the given, do you feel safe enough to express them? Or do you feel that when I say that, they start rolling their eyes? If they do so, you keep it up. You don't do anything. But it won't fly away. You get annoyed. And you look for other Juhos and Helmis to sit together and gossip, instead of bringing it to the table where it should be. And that means that if we don't listen to minority voices, different views, we lose out on innovation. And the trouble goes up, the quality goes down. That's it. And what I see traveling the world, that people who feel they cannot express what they think is important, they start doing different types of behaviors, and that's what you see on this slide. We call it sabotage behavior. To release the stress, you make a joke. To release the stress and not go to where you want to go, you should talk with someone. You have excuses and you don't do it. You gossip. Communication gets poor. The tribe, the culture, is not as strong as it could be. People shape cultures, cultures shape people. And actually, this is a diagnostic tool. This is the sign, if this is happening in your company, the safety is so-so. The psychological safety and the sociological safety. It's a sign we need to talk. So what is the culture shaping process? What are the core processes we see? It's interaction and decision making, and I think that's what needs to have our focus. Interaction is about who can join which interaction. We have this important meeting where we decide where to spend the money on and what not. Who can join that conversation? That's a diversity and inclusion question. Decision making is about, do we feel that the ranking is fair? It can be autocratic, it can be deep democratic, or somewhere in the middle. But do I feel that you have the power over me and that you take care of me in the way that I need? If so, I'm good. If not, I get angry, and we see that all the time, hashtag, etc. Because we feel that the decision-making process is not fair. Interactions. Let me focus on that for a while, because that's so important. You could say that there's many different interaction processes. Let's focus on two. One is what we call transactional interactions, and the other one is transformational interactions. People shape cultures through interaction and decision-making, and mainly through transformational interactions. Transactional interactions, we know that. I call them bullet point meetings. You do this, you do that, you get your bullet points going. But it's not where we shape our cultures. It's not where we redefine what we think is important. It's more like we keep on going what we already did. So we need something else. And transformative interactions, I tend to call them metaphorically a campfire. And I'm sure you've been at campfires before. If not, you got homework. And this is the feel you have. This is the moment where you start sharing what's on your mind. Maybe you have the feeling that, I say something, I open my heart and you do the same. And we kind of make sure that I'm open to what you're saying, you're open to what I say, and I change my mind if our conversations lead to it and you do the same. That's a campfire conversation. We transform our ideas. We get to new ideas. So you have bullet point meetings and campfire conversations. My question to you is, do you have enough campfire conversations in your organization? Well, let's put that to the test. Who feels, by show of hands, yes, looking at my organization, we have enough campfire conversations, true conversations, where we really go into our worries and what needs to be done, and we open our hearts and soul and minds and we speak up. Who feels, yeah, we got enough of those? The lucky ones. Who thinks, could do a little bit better? Yeah, and that's what I see everywhere I travel. Cultures don't fall from the sky, we create them together. We don't have time for that. We only have back-to-back meetings. Yeah, you got a lot of bullet point meetings, but then it's very hard to change and to go into transformations, because that's where we need campfire conversations for. Culture change. So we understand now the culture shaping process. Like, people shape cultures through interaction and decision making. Check. And they do that to define what they think is valuable, the behaviors and the norms, and then they solidify it in the world around us. That's how we shape cultures. Now, if we want to change them, anthropology gives us this word, liminal spaces. It's vital to understand transformations. Because cultures change constantly through every micro decision. It's not a static thing. So even if you don't do anything, your culture will change. Look at the photos 20 years ago. Cultures change anyhow. But sometimes we need to jumpstart it. And looking at the world, there's many reasons to do so. So how do we do that? Big changes, transformations, what basically needs to be done is that we change our narrative, right? Because it's nice that we have our values, but if we change how we look at human nature, like Rutger expressed, we change our values, life-centered, for instance, then we need to change our behaviors and we need to redesign the world, and the financial streams might become different. Power shifts. And we think that we do that in 2 steps. That's what we learn in many schools, in many business schools and MBAs. You define what you don't want. You define B, where you want to go. You prepare, you have a kickoff session, and that's it. Doesn't work like that. Because people change in 3 steps, and we change through rites of passage. And that's what we can learn when we travel the world and look at different cultures in different places. We need rites of passage. First of all, we need a separation phase, where it becomes very clear that the way we did things, it's history. We cannot continue like that. Separation, where we understand that, yes, this was the value for a long time, but it's outdated. The answers we got to the universal questions are outdated. We need to find new answers. Separation. We had that during Corona time. Bam, different. We find new answers. We call it hybrid working. New values, new behaviors, new skills, and how do we define that in the world? And that's what we call a transition phase. We don't know. Things are unclear. And then at one point, we get back to real life, and then we integrate that, what we learned, into our new life. And that's how people transform. Huge transformations go through what we call liminal spaces. And a liminal space is the space what was no longer is. What will be is not yet, and what we have is chaos and uncertainty. The future is the domain of not knowing. We love it, we hate it. We get excited, and we're anxious. And that's liminal space. Was it not good what we did before? Yeah, it was then, but now we need to do it differently. Liminal space, and this is where we experience chaos. It's like a free fall. And people tend to minimize it because I want clarity. But as soon as you give clarity, you stop the liminal space. But if you want to go through true transformations, you need to extend it. Because you need a new narrative, and it takes time. And from the new narrative, new behavioral patterns, you have to experiment. And from there, we have new power dynamics. And that's a painful process. And then we need to design our world. That's true transformation. Liminal spaces. And that means that we need to be with change, with learning, with chaos, not knowing. Some people hate it, some people love it. It's creative. We can do anything because it's all up for discussion. But when is it finished? That's the question we have. It's emotional. We have to go to bits and pieces before we can create something new. So what we actually need is not necessarily a new answer. Not yet. We need to find the new answers, and therefore we need to have anxiety and uncertainty skills. And this is where you come in. I'm not going through them one by one. You can take a picture if you want to remember them all. And reflect on them. How well are you with uncertainty? Do you like it? What's your spirit of adventure? Your emotional strength? Do you know why? What's your inner purpose? Because it will take strength. And in that liminal space, in that space through transformation, we need leadership. Obviously, that's where the leaders come in. And leadership, on the daily stuff, because we can't close the world while we go through transformation. Your company will keep on going, so we need day-to-day leadership. And that's a type of leadership which takes care of the clock. It's the bullet points. It's to make sure that things keep on going. But we need something extra. We need liminal leadership. And that's a type of leadership which takes, care of this not knowing. Of this, how do we define the world which is not there yet? And archetypically, it's not the chiefs, it's the shamans, it's the magicians, it's the artists. It's the one who can picture something which is not there yet. It's those who facilitate the magical time, you could say, during transformations. Most companies I come to, they don't really take care of this process. So the chief has to work really hard, taking care of the day-to-day. We don't have time for all, no, but you have to take time to get to transformations. And it's not clock time, it's magical time. And magical time is announced by rituals. We're emotional beings, also in office spaces, and also in Finland. We are. And we need rituals to help us to understand that we move from one space to another. And we know that from our private lives. You know that you need a graduation day to shift from being a student to an expert and a professional. You need a wedding day to go from being single to being a married person. We need those rituals to go through big transformations, to go from separations, bachelor parties, and then transition and then integrate it to your new life. We need that. It's how we do it. And sometimes in organizations, we tend to forget it. I went to Togo for one of my research projects. I did research around voodoo. Why I did that, I'll leave that for another time. I want to take you on a short 5-minute max journey into my inner world during this research project. And it was an intense project. I was there and I thought I was going to observe. But they had something different from me in mind. My son, you see him on the right, he collected 7 priests to give me 5 ceremonies. And some of them lasted 15 hours to experience his worldview and religion. Usually people take a lifetime to go through those ceremonies, and I had 12 days. It was really intense. And I was sitting there. And I knew that all my anxiety and uncertainty skills were challenged. Spirit of adventure was there. I like to improvise, it's all good, acceptance. But openness was for me a challenge because everything was different from what I was used to. And openness is to try to feel the other without your own opinion continuously running through it. Try that for a day. It's difficult, but that's what we need to get into new spaces, to recollect our minds and to rethink of our stories. I'll show you 30 seconds of what I experienced in those days.
Ik geef me over aan het ritme van de nacht.
After a couple of hours in the forest, near the magical tree, we went back to the village. And they asked me to sit down on my bum with my feet in front of me. And they gave me a goat. And they said, hold on tight to the goat. I don't know if you ever sat in a position like that, but it's very uncomfortable. And at that time, I didn't know, but it would take an hour. So I was sitting there. I was only wearing a panye, which is a white piece of cloth. And I was feeling the goat to my belly, skin to skin. And I was holding it. And it looked at me and I looked back and the goat said, bah. And I looked it in the eyes and it looked back. And I felt so bad because I knew they were gonna kill the goat. And in principle, I'm not against that. I know that there will be animals sacrificed and I know they will eat the meat. It's like the barbecue you have with friends, and I was eating meat, so it's all good. But I started feeling a relationship with this goat. And I was thinking, do I really want some living creature to be killed for my happiness? Because the whole goal of this ceremony was to reconnect me with my birth energy. And then I saw the dove, and if you look in the picture, you can see the priest holding a dove. I didn't feel anything with the dove. I was fine with them killing the dove. And I was shocked by that. I thought, do I have the same with people? Am I okay with others I don't know who suffer? And what do I sacrifice in life? And it kept on going and going. And this was a full hour. And there was music there and dancing and people laughing and singing and making noise. And I was with the goat. And at one point I thought, I don't want the goat to be killed for my happiness. So I asked the priest, can we save it? And he just looked at me. He said, really? But then time continued and it felt like hours. This was not 60 minutes clock time. This was magical time. And I really realized I want to save the goat. So I said to the priest, my spirits are finding it very difficult. So they had a time out. Because once you really, really connect with people, they connect back to you. I said, can we save the goat? So the priests were talking together. And I couldn't understand what they're saying, but I could hear like, what, really? And then they came back to me. They said, well, the thing is, all the spirits are here, from the north to south, the east to west, your ancestors, my ancestors, everyone is here. And we promised them food and drinks, the goat. And I said, we can save the goat. But the question is more like that. It's your ceremony, they said. But it's either the goat or you, and probably us too. I said, okay, then take the goat. And then I said, but can you please kill it gently? Kill it gently. And that was a strange thing. And afterwards I decided, I don't want living creatures to be killed for me anymore. So I stopped eating meat. Because my values changed. I decided not to value. I just didn't want it, truly didn't want it. So I had to change my behaviors. I had to learn to cook different meals. I had to do different shopping. I redesigned, you could say, my world, but I still eat fish. And that's because I'm a human being. We're not so concurrent. I'd say that, do we value child labor? I think if we do like a questionnaire, what do you think? Yes or no? I think we all disagree with child labor, don't you think? Yeah? But what are the chances that all of us, including me, are at this moment wearing clothes made by children? We disagree with that, we don't value it, but we don't act on it, and that is because we're human beings. if we need to align with what we think is valuable, we truly need to change our behaviors and redesign. We need to see it. And it will shift our power balances. To me, I realized being in Togo, being in a ritual like this, it created the space to really rethink my normal and to really decide something else. And it was such a deep experience that afterwards, I couldn't say, it's okay. I'll eat a sausage. To me, that was what happened. And you see that we need rituals to go through deep transformations. Also in organizations. You cannot just say, let's have different corporate values, put communication on it, change the website, and roll it out over the people. It doesn't work like that. We need to have true conversations because cultural transformation is new collective patterns of thoughts, beliefs, and behaviors. And we can do that because people shape cultures, cultures shape people through interaction and decision-making, through transformational interactions. And then we need to translate it into bullet points to make it work. Because it's also a redesign of our world in the bricks, bytes, and power structures. Because if we value different stuff, we value different behaviors. And the ones who are good with the old behaviors might not become the leaders of tomorrow. If I just take this simple example of we value hybrid working after Corona, then it needs hybrid working skills. Well, leaders, you either learn them or you move. Otherwise, how can you put those values into practice? And you need to redesign the world. People shape cultures, cultures shape people. Now, the final anthropological insight I want to share is that we need two forces to do so. Two forces, and you see them everywhere. And they're both good, you need both. But I'm sure you probably say, I feel more for that one than for that one. I'll explain them. To shape cultures, to create organizations, to go through change, we definitely need the force of power. We need to set our goals. We need to say this is good and this is bad. And we need to work for it. It's like carrying a torch and say, this is what we're about. And if something is blocking the way, we break it, we push it away. We put dopamine in the system. And it feels good. You know dopamine, when you have like the tasks you have to do, like the list, and you did something which is not on your list. You put it on, to tick it off. That's dopamine. And it feels good. And we need that. If we don't have power, if we're not rebellious, nothing will change. But if we only have power in the system, we'll die. Because too much power will kill you. You need to balance it with what I call love. Over the years, I had people coming after a talk to me, sometimes crying, saying, I'm so happy that you use the word love in a business context, because that's what I miss. And if you're uncomfortable with the word love, call it connection or engagement. But it's really truly saying, how are you? It's a campfire where you put the torches of what we want together, and then we truly have the conversation. It's not about the chit-chat. I'm not talking about the Friday afternoon beer party. Have those. But I'm talking about if you want to have a decision about where to spend your money on, who can join in, who not, what the strategy is, how to look at the future, how to distribute the power, how to build our cities, who can join in and not. Have a campfire conversation where you open your heart and the other does too, and you allow yourself to change your mind if the conversation leads to that, and that's called love. With trust and knowing that there is a holistic view to very wicked problems what we go through. And it's oxytocin that we need in the hormonal system. That we feel that we are together. That we're proud of each other. And of course it's the balance. Of course it's the balance. Power and love will guide us through all different situations. And that's, I think, how we build future-proof cultures. But power and love, knowing that nothing has meaning of itself. Cultures don't fall from the sky. We create it together. in interaction and decision making. Who can join which interaction? Who will decide what? And that's where you come in, because it matters what you think, what you say, and what you do, because we shape our cultures through every micro decision. You decide you keep on going what you did or you change it. And if you decide that for whatever reason, the world you live in, the family you live in, the school system, the company is not valuing what should be valued, then we need to have the guts to change our behaviors and to redesign the world into the futures we want. I count on you and I wish you safe travels. Thank you.
Jitske, that was fantastic. I think that you've been the person that's going to help these people change some cultures, so thanks for that. We don't have time for questions, I'm afraid, but I have a question for you, which is, before you go, could you tell me one word that, if there's one word you'd want people to take away from what you've just said to them, what's the one word?
Can I create a new one?
Can you create a new word? Maybe. Yeah, sure. Create a new word.
Power love.
Power love? Power love. You've created a new word. That's great. All right. Don't go too far. I'd love you to see how we use this new word, power love, in the next surprise that's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, Jitske Kramer. Power love.